Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Wildin Out, your wild show on Thursdays afternoon, bringing you the hottest content from THL Wild Series. I am Lotus Knight, your stream operator for today, and I want to introduce your hosts, Marty. Take it away.
Thank you, Lois, for the introduction. Hello and welcome everyone to Wild and Out. Joining me tonight, I have Seth with me. Rodder was supposed to be here, but he got caught up a little bit on with some things, so he may be joining a little bit later instead. But the show must go on, so we have a lot to discuss. First things first, player of the week. Seth, who is our player of the week on the NA server?
All right. For NA for week 7, our player of the week is Number Theory for getting a 3-2 victory over Battle Tagger, which actually isn't allowed. I read the THL rules. You're not allowed to beat Battle Tagger, but I guess they made an
Really?
exception. The win helped Mad Scientist upset Everyone's a Winner 16-10 and push Number Theory's record to an impressive 6-1 this season. And the win also keeps the Scientists firmly in the playoffs race, something I am very uncomfortable with as the captain of Nofin 2. But congratulations to him for an amazing showing against one of the best players in Wild NA.
Yeah, really one of the best players considering everyone takes his lineup, his patented Tagger lineup. So well done there. As for our EU player of the week, we're going to give it to Matt Thanos. So Matt Thanos is having one of the best seasons in the EU series, but it hasn't come without challenges. And during their match against Goku, a pipe burst in their home and disrupted the match. Our player of the week was unfazed throughout, though, not only continued to play through the chaos, but beat the ferocious Norwegian, taking 4 points for a little agony. If anyone's curious, there's screenshots and pictures of this in Discord as well. So if you want to see how bad it was, the entire ceiling was leaking. There were buckets and puddles of water all over, right next to their PC setup, and it was a total mess. So playing through that and getting the win is extremely impressive. Congrats to them. Now, with that said, let's move over to the meta overview from last week. So, taking a look at things here, there is a massive shakeup with our Seed Warlock ban, and yet we have two people bringing the Demon Seed last week. Otters. I don't know if you're here, but you want to explain that? But really, those that brought the Demon Seed when it was banned were given a bit of a leniency, and they got to put any 0 mana 1/1 that they wanted, and that gave them a chance to actually get a win. Whether they did or didn't, you can check the results or ask them yourself. But technically playable, and I'm sure those players were very happy to hear that. Outside of Seedlock, Demon Hunter hasn't really changed much. Druid saw 9 fewer brings from last week down to 49. Bunch of different um, decks being brought, but most people are sticking with Malygos Druid. We see a lot of token druids too. Those are the Tagger builds, the patented Tagger lineup, of course. Hunter saw a huge jump with 17 more brings. Most of this went to the odd questline Hunter. 52 of those last week. 40 mages. Mage went up a little bit. Nothing too crazy. We see a lot of slower archetypes, especially the LPG mage. That was the big rise this week with 7 of those coming in. Paladin dropping a ton, down to 15 brings from 24 the previous week. Priest actually stayed the same, but the archetypes changed a ton. We have a lot of different archetypes throughout. Most of them significantly slower though. So only 6 aggro priests, and the rest just very slow controlly priest lists and combo priests. So we can see how just deleting Seedlock changed the meta even within a single class. Rogue saw fewer brings, 6 fewer than the previous week. Shaman, huge winner, more than doubling in population this last week. All different kinds of decks being brought. The most popular being Reno, followed by Murloc Shaman, and Warlock falling a lot. 14 fewer brings, as expected with the Seed Lock ban. But people still sticking with the class. 72 brings. It is the second highest, second most popular class, I should say, last week. And then finally, Warrior with 5 more brings, 76 total, most of them being some variation of Pirate Warrior. So with that said, we have 2 decks to look at, and both these are some of the more aggressive ones. Seth, who is the first deck from?
So, excuse me if I butcher your name, but Killer Raccoon, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
Killer
I thought so,
Raccoon.
but Killer Raccoon brought what looks to be, if you look at the bottom end, a Galakron Shaman, but you look a little bit higher in the curve and you realize that he forgot the Invokes and the Galakron. And instead, he made a full Elemental Shaman build that revolves around the really good early game of like Kindling Elemental into Arid Stormer or Gyre Worm, whatever, however you want to curve out with all of those really cheap but powerful elementals. And then at the top end, he's got a little bit of value and burst with Fire Elemental and Grumble, rounding out the 6 mana slot. And to me, this looks like a really, really solid aggressive deck. And if I had to guess, I'd say it doesn't do too shabby into Pirate Warrior or any kind of swarmy token deck like our good friend Battle Tagger likes to bring.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And stuff like Granite Forgeborn really helps in cheating things out. So if you get to 7 and you have Forgeborn on board, you can. Oh no, sorry, on turn 6, actually. If you have Forgeborn out on 6, then you could Grumble at 5 mana and play the Forgeborn again. So you can replay all your minions, get their battle cries, and pretty much heal your entire board. So
And if you
a
have the
very interesting
Slaughter,
strategy there.
you're getting a free trade and 6 heal to the face. So
Yeah,
it's got some cute little combos besides just being a really solid tribal aggro deck.
yeah. So congrats to Killer Raccoon for getting a win with this. Let's take a look at the second deck now. And this one is from Lasagna, who I believe finally qualified for Masters Tour. So congrats to them. This is a take on the standard aggro druid with some wild spice sprinkled in. So we have our standard pirate and biggin package. But on top of that, we're running things like composting, encumbered pack mule, razor main battle guard, and even things like Serenite Chain Gang and Teacher's Pet. So really creative deck building here. And once again, this got a win this week. Seth,
I'm
what do
not
you think?
surprised. Well, I mean, Lasagna is a really good player, so he could make even the worst deck look good, but he really took some creative threads when making this aggro deck, when making aggro druid and kind of blending what we've seen from Wild and what they're doing in Standard. And it worked out really well for him, obviously. So it's to him for coming up with something really creative and something that we haven't seen a lot of this season and winning with it.
Absolutely. So given that, that covers our 2 featured decks for this week. Remember, if you want a featured deck on here, come up with something new and interesting, and make sure to win a week with it. And we'll take a look and try to feature it. So if you have any other suggestions too, hit us up. Always happy to get deck lists. So with that said, let's move on to the Brown Conference in NA and take a look over there.
All right. So for the Brown Conference in NA, my conference, um, at the top, pretty dominant right now. Aussie Pain Merchants with 123 points. In second, not too far behind, is Everyone's Winner with 115. And then there's a big, big gap which hasn't been the case up until this week, and you'll see why later on. But Nofin 2 and Pog Merchants are tied for third with 95 points apiece. And then rounding out the bottom three are Mancrick's Revenge, Bash Bros, and WTF with 88, 84, and 82 points apiece. Because of how close Brown Conference is in points, nobody is really out yet. That 3 seed is going to be a hot commodity in the playoffs race. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. We haven't looked at Green Conference yet, but that 3 seed effectively among the top 8 would serve as an 8 seed. So it's pretty much the bubble right now in the Brown Conference. So definitely something to keep an eye on, as you said. Let's take a look at the first matchup from last week then. We have Aussie Pain Merchants versus Meta Drillers. So
I
just looking
mean,
at this from the top. Oh, go ahead, Seth. It's all yours if you
no,
want.
you're more okay. APM, they're top of this conference. It's no surprise. They beat Meta Jewelers, who have had a pretty good showing in green. 15-10, which is nothing to scoff at, but um, Bone Masher and Slight both advanced to 6-1. They are absolutely dominant this season. Maxie and Quake aren't far behind, and Yo Daddy's struggling a bit, but even when he's losing, he's getting those critical 2-3 losses, which is what's keeping them so high in points and what separates them so much from, the 3 and 4 seed and beyond.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Something to note as well, all the warrior bands from Meta Jewelers, really, it seemed like none of them wanted to face Pirate Warrior. And if we take a look, everyone brought Warrior of some sort as well between the two of them. So keeping that
The
in
only,
mind,
the only player that
keeping that
didn't
in
ban
mind,
Warrior on Meta Jewelers did happen to get a win too, so there might be a connection there.
yeah, who knows? But it'll be interesting to follow and see how things shape up in that respect for the conquest meta. As we see, the one person to ban warrior on the pain merchants was also the only person to lose. So who knows? Maybe something's there. Let's take a look at the next matchup then. We have Wild THL Fanatics versus the usual suspects. So this one's interesting in the fact that there's so many sweeps going on. Labore improving to a very impressive 5-2 now with the 3-0 sweep over Snake Fods. Slot and Kyrax keeping it very close with a 5-game series last week. And then Skittles and Sharkana taking 3-0 sweeps over Electric Sheep City and Nate Wolf TCG. Both awesome guys of the Born to Be Wild podcast and server. Usually I don't shout them out, but definitely check them out because they run their own series with a lot of creative deck building stuff, and it's a lot of fun. So join the Discord; they'll send you the right way. And when the next season comes along, definitely try to join. It's a lot of fun. And finally, Aiden PWE taking a 3-1 win over Dr. BOMD. BOMD has been having a really rough season, but I can't imagine he goes winless the entire season, right?
No, BOMD will always pull it back. I got faith in him.
Yeah. It'll come eventually. His time has not come yet, but he just needs that one good matchup, and then he'll get one. I trust. Now, we have Green Series to also cover next. Let's head on over there.
Before you get started, I just want to mention that finally, it's only taken like 7 weeks, but finally F2L is back where they usually are. No surprise, and just like I called out on the very first installment of the show, I knew they'd be back. They don't like being out of the 1 seed, as I'm sure you can attest to better than anyone else.
Yeah, it helps when you have a 7-0 player on your team who is very upset that they couldn't win MVP last season because their teammate decided to take it instead. But as you said, F12 Viridian at the top, just 1 point ahead of the still undefeated Hair Club. This isn't a knock on Hair Club at all. Really, 6-0-1 is an insane record. Then we have a 16-point drop to third place to Meta Jewelers at 110 points. Mad Scientists right behind them at 106. Then we have Owl Come at 101 points. And then a little bit further down, we have the Golden Hand and the Usual Suspects at 76 and 69 points, respectively. So earlier, we were talking about the Brown Conference standings, how the 3 seed had 95 points, correct?
Correct.
So with the playoff format in the Wild Series, the top 3 teams from each conference make the playoffs. Then the final 2 slots for the playoffs are at-large wildcards between both conferences. We just take the 2 highest point earners. And right now, that's Mad Scientists and Owl at 106 and 101 points, respectively. So that means 95 points is below that. And no one outside of that top 3 in Brown Conference will make it into the playoffs if playoffs were to start this week. So keep that in mind. Things can change. A team in the Green Conference could slip a little bit, and we could see teams in the Brown Conference gain some ground. Who knows? But right now, that's where things stand. So let's take a look at our first matchup in the Brown Conference then.
Mm.
Seth, I will give the option to you on whether you want to cover this or not, because I know this one stings a little bit.
We can share it a little bit. I mean, I'd say this is equal parts your victory and my loss because I won't lie to you. We knew this was going to be a tough week. We had marked this week down from the very start. But my goodness, did we not expect a 20-3?
Yeah, this was, I believe, the first 5-member win for F12 Viridian this season as well. But really, 2 sweeps, absolutely dominant from us. This wasn't really all that lopsided on paper either. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There were a couple from our side, of course, no fin. There were a couple interesting deck building decisions on my part that may have set myself up, and as well as just not being able to dedicate some prep time that I would have liked to, that led to some poor lineups. And on paper, it shows the 20-3 was earned. There was no luck involved there.
I don't know
But
about that. I think you're giving yourself a little bit too hard a time. There were some matches that could have gotten your way very easily. It just the cards didn't end up in that way. And that's gonna
I know
happen.
personally against Rotted, every game was close. It says 3-1, but it was 4 very close games that could have swung either way with one more
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah, and that's just how a lot of these matches went really. So keep that in mind. Even for teams on the bottom, it's kind of the same thing. Sure, they don't have as many points, but it's not like they're doing poorly either. They're still getting some points as we see. So don't knock
And
Nofin 2 out yet. I know you guys are on the bubble, but you had one of the harder schedules so far, and with a few more weeks, you can still get there.
this was definitely a big hit. And that's why the playoff race is so close because we were pretty, we were sitting pretty comfortable. We had 10, 15 points up on the 4, but with such a crushing loss, I mean, not even a single player win, it it's really hard to this late in the season to score that few points. So we're definitely going to have to pick it up this week and next, and hopefully we can end up on top of the bubble.
Well, best of luck with that. Let's move on to
He
our
says
second
after
match.
beating us 20-3.
Well, there's only so much I can say. But let's take a look at the other one. And this was as close as it gets. It was a tie. Can you break this down for us?
I sure can. So Hair Club, undefeated before this week, went up against Bash Bros, and as you can see, they tied 13-13. A sweep from White Delight, and then a 3-2 for both Jailstorm and a 3-2 from Jailstorm, and then a 3-2 from Anubinator. And then on Hair Club side, Memnart coming in with a 3-1, and Mr. Python getting his own 3-1. The math works out a little funny with getting the extra point for winning, but keeping it close was really in Hair Club's best interests. I am very, I'm not the word, I can't find the word I'm looking for, but it's impressive how tough they fought it out. I mean, Bash Bros isn't, they don't have the highest amount of points, but their players do put in good work and they play hard. People like Mr. Python, Jailstorm, and Nubinator, they're pretty active, and you see them every season coming back to play and improving. So it's no surprise that they really put up a good effort this week to try and take down the undefeated Hair Club.
Yeah. Do you know who their one win is against?
Um,
F12. So when they bring their A game, they can compete with and even beat the best. And when I say best, I mean former champions. So they're not to be underestimated. So congrats to both of them. Hair Club gets to stay undefeated, and they sit up at the top, nice and pretty, probably guaranteeing their playoff spot as well. I don't see how they fall off at this point. So congrats to them. And shout out Keith for subbing in as well. So that covers a green conference then. And now we have player power rankings to discuss for the NA series. So let's head on over there. So I'm going to start with the honorable mentions first. We have Slot, Burnt, Labore Sangre, and Concerned Mom all tied at 16 PAR, and Get Me Out 5 and 2 as well at 15 PAR. Then from bottom to top, Martian Boo, Conorrhea, both at 17 PAR. Then we have Slate, rank 8th place, 21 PAR. 7 Battle Tagger, 22 PAR. I want you all to know, Connor, you made the person next to me struggle to hold their giggles in because of your name. Good job. 6 Lasagna, 25 PAR. Sunday, number 5 at 26 par. Numbers 4 and 3, Number Theory and White Delight, respectively, both at 28 PAR. Rank 2 is Bone Masher. And finally, rank 1, the only undefeated player left in the NA series, is Corb at 40 par. So congrats to all the players on the list. Now, we have one other series to cover, and that's EU. So let's head on over. And Seth, tell us about the standings there.
all right. So in EU, at the top, we've got a Little Agony with 116 points. Everyone's a winner with 113. F2L Celadon with 112. And then a Little Divide, about 8 points to Goku number 1 with 104 in the 4 seed. And a little further down, you've got Safari Wild and Bad Tech Cards with 90 and 64 points respectively.
Yeah, this is pretty close at the top. So a Little Agony was way ahead before, And now there's only 4 points separating the first place and third place. Goku number one also not too far behind at 104 points. Having a bit of a drop to Safari Wild at 90 points. And finally, Bad Tech Cards at the bottom. But remember, all of these teams make playoffs, and the one thing they're playing for is the bye week. So, the bye week isn't clinched yet for anyone, and anything can happen in playoffs. So, who knows how this will go? Let's take a look at our first matchup then. We have a Little Agony versus Goku number one. Rada was supposed to cover this because he played in this matchup, but since he's not here, I'll take it for him. So at the top, we have Rotted playing against Taunish Cheat. That went 3-2 in Rotted's favor, bringing him to 5-2. Very cursed stat line considering the team's name is Goku number one. And Goku, in this 2 seed, lost 1-3 against Matt Thanos, our player of the week, bringing Goku to a 3-3 record. Very concerning. So I don't know if they're going to change their name or not yet, but I think they're going to start looking into it. In the 3, 4, and 5 seed, these were all 5-game matches as well. All of them went in Goku number one's favor. So Otters, Shadow Frog, and the substituting Duin took these 5-game wins. Ian Bruce, Yerna, and Slot all got points for the team, but weren't able to get there in the end. Keep in mind, since it's a 5-game series, usually these are generally just coin flips. So nothing to knock on a Little Agony for. Seth, do you have any other comments to make with this matchup?
Besides how cursed it is that Goku was the only loss for Goku number one, I think I've heard rumors that they're going to put out a petition to change their name to Rotted number one after this week.
Yeah, at this point, you might as well. Otters, you heard it. You gotta change it now. Go ask the board. With that, let's move to our second match then. This is between Safari Wild versus Bad Tech Cards.
Alright, so Safari Wild versus Bad Tech Cards was very close if you look at the game scores, with 4 matches being 3-2s, and only 1 sweep from our featured deck by Killer Raccoon. Very proud of him for that one. Not only did he bring something off meta, he also swept with. Very impressive. So with those 3-2s, 3 of them fell in Safari Wild's favor, with Silosin, Romanu, and King's Bounty all taking it for Safari Wild, and Elfie Delphi taking the 3-2 over Lorot for Bad Tech Cards.
Yeah, Elfie having a sneaky good season on Bad Tech Cards. Only 3-2, but in the 1 seed, so playing against the best players in the Wild EU series. Very impressive. And I know for a fact she's very creative with her matchups every single week, especially when it comes to having to name decks, as we'll discuss on next week's show. So definitely stop by and check it out. With that, Seth, you still there?
Yeah. With that, we will move into PPR for EU.
Yes.
And just like for NA, we can start with the honorable mentions. Starting at the bottom with 10 PAR apiece, we've got Elfie, Adrian123, and QB. And coming up close behind them is Maxadonna and Rebobson with 11 PAR. And then moving up into our rankings, we've got Shadow Frog at 10, also with 11 PAR, but with a slightly better game score, which gave them the edge. And then at 9, we've got Otters, who has 12 PAR, and captain of Goku number one, soon to be Rotted number one. And then looking a little further up, we've got Lasagna with 14 PAR, Mr. Luke with 15, and Rotted with 17. And then looking at our top five, we've got Lorthos with 18, no surprise there. And then Larat and Taunt with 19 and 21 apiece. Also very well known, very good, uh, EU players. And Mad Thanos, 6-1 with 24 PAR, having an incredible season, but not quite as good as our number one, Alb 987, 7-0 with 40 PAR, 16 points ahead of the two.
Absolutely insane. 16 par over the next player. Alp has taken the next few weeks off, so you gotta wonder, is that gonna be enough to seal highest PAR in the EU series this season? We'll have to see, but it's definitely the number to beat. And so that covers it for EU. And let's head back to the main screen for our final segment. So this was going to be more fun with three people here, but Rotted, unfortunately,
Oh,
still MIA.
do you want me to ask the question?
Uh, Lotus, it's all you then if you want to. Yeah, we have our question of the week at the end. Lotus, can you tell us what that is?
Sure. The question of the week that all our audience here wants to ask the three of you, or the two of you, is Nofin 2 versus the Pog Merchants. Who makes the playoffs?
So, for a little context, as we saw before, Nofin 2 and the Pog Merchants are both tied at 95 apiece for that final spot in the playoffs in NA. Both 3 and 4. So, question is, who makes it between them? Seth, I think we know your answer, but I want to hear it
Um,
from you.
I know which team I want to make the playoffs, but it's going to be very, very close. Pog Merchants, just like us, started off slow and have picked up some steam. And it's going to be very, very, very interesting these next 2 weeks. Now, if we look at wild team standings, Nofin has had a harder AOS with 15, and Pog Merchants is coming in at just under 13 and a half. So these next 2 weeks, we're really going to have to make up that point differential from our F2L loss to keep ourselves safely in that 3 seed. And not only Pog Merchants, Pog Merchants are the closest to us. They are we are neck and neck. But I wouldn't sneeze at Mancrick's Revenge either. They are only 7 points behind, and they had an incredible season last season, struggling a little bit this season, but I would not count them out. Wild is not a format where you can count anyone out, especially with that close of a point differential.
Yeah, it's definitely close, as you said, and nothing is set in stone. So, if you had to ask me, though, I went over this a little bit on Monday with our owl friends, and I think
Marty, can you hear us? Seth, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I believe Marty's internet might have dropped out.
Okay, so Marty may be out. When he comes back, we can keep asking him the question. Um, I will hop to our next segment in the meanwhile, which is final words. If you have any final words you would like to say, Seth, before we wait for Marty to come back and say his final words.
hi, can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay, my internet's really bad here. I got a new ISP just for this, and they still haven't set it up, so I'm just waiting on that. But this will be a problem of the past very soon. So I was saying before, Seth, I think you brought up a good point with Nofin having the harder schedule, but I don't think that you guys will get above our Owl friends in the Green Conference. I spoke about this on Monday a bit more in depth, but given that, I think you guys can get the final spot, just barely. Also, it'll be a good send off for Nofin too, because you guys are going to be the Rumble Tusk Shakers next season. So, for anyone
That's
wondering,
a story
Seth and I had a
for
little
another show. Oh, okay.
Seth and I had
Actually,
a
I'm
little
fine with
belt.
that. Let's hear it.
Bet. Yeah, Seth and I had a little bet going on uh, last week, and our friend here lost the bet, which means you will see that his decks for the rest of the season have to have Rumble Tusk Shaker, and next season they will be the Rumble Tusk Shakers. So something to spice things up a little bit. Elfie, I know you know all about spicing things up with your opponents and your deck lists. We'll discuss that next week, but definitely keep an eye on it. It's a lot of fun. That's what this is for anyway. So I hope to see you guys in the playoffs, Seth. That's all
I'd
I have
hope
to
to see
say
you there
on that.
too. And maybe we can give you a little better showing than we did last week.
Oh, we'll have to see. So, Lotus, sorry for interrupting, but coming back to it, final words. Take us through it once again.
Sure. I just want to thank all the hosts here, and I want to ask them for their final words. Seth, any final words for the night?
My final words are it would be awful poetic if Nofin 2 were to send off their season beating F2L Viridian with a Rumble Tusk Shaker. Be awful poetic if I could hit our very own NHL and J Fan 1 in the dome with a 3-2, a 4-mana 3-2.
It does have death rattle.
Got a
I
good
really
death
hope you
rattle.
do it.
Got
I
excellent
really
stats
hope.
for the cost.
Yeah, I really hope it happens. And it's a sticky minion too. Defile proof.
That's hard to
So
remove.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um,
So
Marty, any final words you want to say for the night?
yeah, just want to say thanks, Seth, for being here. Thanks, Lotus, for running all this. And thanks, Rodit, for being invisible. You really let us take the show on to new heights. So, but really, Rodit got stuck being sent to the market after picking up his kids, so he wasn't able to make it. Which is totally cool. Happens.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he'll be back in 2 weeks. But once again, thanks to everyone for stopping by. We really appreciate it. If you have anything that you want us to add, work on, or any suggestions, just hit us up. If you want to have your matches streamed, hit up me, Lotus, Saku, or anyone in THL. They'll send you to the right guys to set it up. And yeah, thanks again. And with that, that wraps things up. So we will see you next week. Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
See ya.